Boy Canard Lewis, we in the flesh, we doing it right. And I'm here today to talk about a topic that doesn't get that much traction. That's about knowledge, reading. I firmly believe in the more you know, the more you'll see. And that's true. The more we actually engage ourselves in the information that's happening around us, the more we can actually see how the system is set up. The more we can actually see how messed up this world can actually be. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because there are dialogue that need to be created if we expect things to change. And I'm not saying that I can change the world by myself or you can't change the world by yourself, because we can't. We're only one person. But together we can actually do something. Together we can actually start actually talking about some of these issues to bring them to light. Because what's so sad is that if we don't give these topics that are happening in the paper, that are happening in the world, more light and more conversation, then they ultimately just get swept under the rug. And you know how I know that? We spend so much time on Amazon complaining about the $3 billion in incentives, and I understand. I don't like them. I don't like them. But we forgot, right? Hudson Yards. Hudson Yards, a real estate place, right? 6 billion, and it's been financed within the last decade by the city. So we spend so much time talking about Amazon, complaining about those incentives when the city has been giving this place incentives for so long. And so, right, a lot of things are being slipped under the table, right? Like other stories, right? 895 spots open for elite schools, elite high schools in New York City. Guess what? Only 7 went to African Americans. 7. And you know what? The number has been going down because last year was 10. The year before that has been 13. And you wonder, why aren't people of color getting more access to more educational resources and opportunities so that they can actually rise to the next educational level? Again, information, stories that are being told but not getting that much light. And ask yourself, really, how often do you read? And I understand that sometimes we don't get to read because we're busy with our work schedules or school schedules, or maybe we got tired of reading because we were forced to read textbooks and articles that we didn't want to read. And I understand that because you know why? I was forced to read this back in the day. Back when I was in high school, forced to read it, forced to get quizzed on it. Guess what? Failed every single quiz. I'm not gonna lie, I did. But when I went to college, I saw this, and I'm like, this can be something. And I made the very thing that I failed and that I dreaded into my radio show, and I started talking about it. And that's the beauty, is the fact that although I didn't know who was listening, I didn't know who was paying attention, I felt like the world needed to hear about this information. Paul Manafort, right? Again, illegal schemes with Trump committing fraud, and how he only got 47 months, billions of dollars in fraud, and was supposed to get like a 19-year sentence, but it got reduced to a few years, to a couple years, right? A couple to a few years. See, that happened. But see, a person who stole $100 worth of quarters from a laundry machine got up to 30 is getting up to 36 to 72 months in prison. $100 worth of quarters, $1 billion in fraud. Look, a crime is a crime, I get that. But time should be given to the crime that should be done. And it doesn't make sense. And you get frustrated because sometimes reading the news gets frustrating, and it gets you thinking, like, why is this happening? What's happening in New Zealand, right? It's terrifying to hear stories like that. I understand that. It really is. But see, if we literally step out of our fears and actually listen and actually talk about it, and as much as negative the stories can be, as saddening and hopeless they can sound, we need to talk about them. You know, it's just like race. People don't want to talk about race because it can get heated. But you know, people are very calm to talk about gender issues. And that's the thing. Just because a topic is heated, just because you know you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, we need to engage in those conversations because life is a bubble. The world is a bubble, and if we don't step out of those comfort zones, step out of those circles and create new ones of dialogue that can actually maybe do something with today's times, then no pun intended, right times, we could actually do something. You know, sometimes I read this information and it just sits in my head because I got nobody else to talk to about, and it's unfortunate. But sometimes the stories can actually be nice because I found out that there's been polls to cure sickle cell anemia. Blood disease, a blood disorder that causes anemic and causes your blood cells to be in a sickle C shape, which doesn't allow enough oxygen to flow to your throat, like throughout the body, and there's a lot of negative effects. You have strokes, people, and there's ways that they have studies of improving that. You also have studies of Costa Rica trying to go green, trying to make sure that they actually have renewable energy, and there's again, black lawmakers stopping the legalization of marijuana and making sure that if that money is going to be generated from legalizing weed, that it goes back into the very people, black and brown people, that were perpetuated and stipulated and being penalized, right, for smoking that same drug that was once illegal, still is, and now you're going to make it legal. Give back to that community. Do something. You know, as much as the news can be saddening, it can actually be uplifting and interesting. And the only way you'll know is if you read, is if you find out what's going on. And I know we can. And life is a bubble, world is a bubble, but if we actually sit down and read and learn something and talk about it, maybe something can change. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.